Amina Carter stepped into the polished lobby of Sterling Enterprises, a mop in one hand and a bucket in the other. Her dark skin glimmered under the soft glow of the overhead. Chandeliers and her natural curls framed her face, radiating a quiet confidence beneath the surface of her calm demeanor. Dressed in the standard Navy uniform of the cleaning staff, her ID badge clipped to her side, Amina's sharp, observant eyes scanned her surroundings. To anyone glancing her way, she was just another invisible worker, easily overlooked by the fast-paced executives bustling by in their tailored suits. The lobby, a symbol of corporate power and success, featured marble floors polished to perfection, reflecting the warm light from an elegant chandelier that hung overhead. The walls were adorned with sleek modern art and framed photographs celebrating the company's milestones. Amina paused for a moment, taking it all in. This was the empire she had once admired from a distance. But today, she was here for something far greater than mere admiration. She was here to experience the workings of the company from the ground up, where few would ever expect someone like her to be, especially not in this capacity. As Amina made her way to the janitor's closet to gather her supplies, she noticed the hierarchy in action. Lower-level employees moved quickly, heads down, eager to please and avoid notice. Meanwhile, the executives walked with an air of untouchable authority, barely acknowledging anyone outside their circle. She exchanged polite nods with a few staff members, who offered brief, somewhat dismissive smiles before hurrying back to their work. Most didn't even notice her, and Amina knew that was just fine. In fact, it was perfect. Reaching the closet, Amina stopped for a moment, a secretive smile curling her full lips. This was the moment she had meticulously planned for months, no years. What no one knew was that she had quietly and strategically acquired the majority shares of Sterling Enterprises, avoiding any public attention. She had played her hand with precision. Today, she wasn't just a cleaner. She was there to understand her company from the perspective of those who kept it running. People often overlooked just as she had been. Her rise had been anything but typical. Raised by her mother, who worked 2 jobs cleaning houses and offices much like this one, Amina learned early on that the world often saw black women as expendable, invisible labor. Yet her mother taught her that strength came from understanding one's worth, even when others didn't. Amina had taken those lessons to heart, pushing herself through college and business school, mastering the rules of a system that wasn't built for her, all while keeping one goal in mind: to control her destiny. Today, that destiny was in her hands. Grabbing a rag and spray bottle, she wheeled her cart down the hallway toward the elevators. As she passed through the bustling corridors, she overheard snippets of conversation about deadlines, meetings, and the usual office politics. However, there were also whispers that made her heart tighten. "Did you see the new janitor?" a young receptionist whispered to her colleague as Amina passed by. "I don't think I've seen her before." The colleague shrugged, her tone dripping with casual condescension. "She'll probably be gone in a week. You know how these executives treat the help. They barely see them." "Yeah," the receptionist agreed, her voice hushed. "It's like they're invisible or something." Amina's grip on the cart tightened slightly, but her face remained composed. Invisible, exactly what she was counting on. She rode the elevator to the top floor, where the executive offices overlooked the rest of the building. Amina had always known that power didn't just sit in the numbers on a spreadsheet, nor in the titles on office doors. Real power came from understanding the game from every angle, especially from the bottom, where people were too often written off. Today, she would get an intimate view of how this place ran, how they thought they could dismiss her just as they had dismissed so many others. As the doors opened, Amina stepped into the world of polished suits and crisp ties. Through the glass walls of the boardroom, she could see the leadership team of Sterling Enterprises, seated around a grand table. There they were, the masters of the universe, who believed their successes had been earned through nothing but their own hard work. She studied their faces. These men had no idea how precarious their control really was. At the head of the table sat Nathan Blake, the CEO. His silver hair was swept back neatly, and he wore an expensive navy suit that seemed to scream dominance. His smile conveyed confidence, maybe even a bit of arrogance. Surrounding him were his trusted lieutenants. James, the CFO, known for cutting costs without a second thought for the people behind the numbers. Richard, the head of marketing, a smooth talker who spun grand stories about the company's success. And Oliver, the operations manager, recognized for his sometimes abrasive approach to efficiency. Together, they were the self-anointed architects of Sterling's success, or so they thought. As Amina moved closer to the boardroom, she overheard their conversation. They were laughing about a recent merger and the hefty bonuses they were expecting. Hard work pays off, doesn't it? Nathan said, casting a glance around the room, clearly pleased with himself. James chuckled, lifting his glass. More like smart work. We know how to play the game? Yeah, smart work. Richard leaned back in his chair, a smirk on his face. It's not like that janitor downstairs has a clue. Imagine her looking at us in our suits, knowing this is as close as she'll ever get. Oliver's voice oozed disdain. Some people are just born to scrub floors and clean up after the rest of us. Life's not fair. Their laughter rang out loud and self-assured. To them, Amina was nothing more than the help, an invisible part of the office scenery. They had no idea that the woman they were laughing at was the one who now controlled their futures. Amina's face remained calm, her hands steady as she wiped the windows outside the boardroom. But inside, she was filing away every word, every insult, every moment of their arrogance. These men thought they had built an empire on their brilliance alone. But in truth, they had built it on the backs of people like her mother, people who had worked themselves to the bone with no recognition. Today, Amina was here to take her rightful place. They had no idea how the world around them was about to change. Later, as she continued her rounds, she overheard two interns whispering near the break room. They spoke nervously about the pressure they felt working for Sterling, the fear of making a mistake that could cost them their careers. One of them, a young black woman with tight braids, glanced at Amina, her eyes filled with a quiet sort of empathy. "Don't let them get to you," the intern said softly. "They act like they run the world, but they don't know everything." Amina smiled at the young woman, feeling a deep connection. She had been in this intern's shoes once, full of ambition, but constantly reminded of her place. "Thank you," Amina said, her voice warm and knowing. Sometimes, the ones who think they know everything are the ones with the most to learn. As she continued down the hall, Amina couldn't help but think about how little anyone here suspected she had spent years building her strategy, studying every detail, every flaw in the system. Today they saw a cleaning lady. Tomorrow they would see her for who she really was, the woman who would flip their world upside down. The next morning, Amina returned to the office, donning the plain blue uniform once again. But today, there was an unmistakable fire in her eyes. She passed through the lobby with the same quiet grace, but inside, she was brimming with anticipation. The time for silence was over. As she ascended to the executive floor, she noticed the tension in the air. The executives were already gathered for their morning meeting, undoubtedly plotting their next moves. But what they didn't know was that today, Amina would make her own. She pushed the door to the boardroom open, her posture as confident as ever. At first, none of them looked up, just the cleaning lady again. But when she didn't move to clean the windows or sweep the floors, Nathan frowned, his impatience bubbling to the surface. "What is it?" he asked, his voice clipped and dismissive. Amina's gaze locked onto his, unwavering. "Actually, Mr. Blake, I'm here for the meeting." The room fell into stunned silence. Nathan's brow furrowed in confusion. "The meeting," he echoed, glancing around at his colleagues, as if to confirm that no one else understood what was happening. Amina reached into her pocket, pulling out a folded piece of paper. She calmly placed it on the table in front of Nathan. "Yes," she replied, her voice steady and calm. "The meeting, where I inform you that as of this morning, I am the majority shareholder of Sterling Enterprises." Nathan's face drained of color. He grabbed the paper with shaking hands, his eyes darting over the words as if searching for some mistake, some way this couldn't be real. But it was. This is impossible, he stammered, his voice trembling. How did you? Amina crossed her arms, her chin held high. While you were busy laughing at people like me, I was making moves quietly, strategically. And now I hold the controlling interest in this company. The others exchanged looks of disbelief, but Amina continued, her voice steady and powerful. You think you built this company, but you couldn't have done it without the hard work of the people you've looked down on. Those invisible workers are the backbone of Sterling, and it's time for that to change. Oliver scoffed, unable to hide his arrogance even in the face of defeat. You think you could just come in here and take over? You don't understand this business. Amina stepped closer, her tone unwavering. I understand more than you think. I know how to build relationships, foster teamwork, and create a culture where everyone has a voice. The days of dismissing the contributions of the very people who make this company function are over. One by one, the executives shifted uncomfortably in their seats as Amina's words sunk in. They had built their empire on the backs of those they considered beneath them, and now, the truth was staring them right in the face. From now on, Amina said, her voice filled with determination, the leadership team will change. We'll have representatives from every level of this company, including cleaning staff, interns, and other frontline workers. They will help shape the future of Sterling Enterprises. You will learn to respect them, and I will not tolerate any more disrespect. The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling like a heavy fog. Nathan opened his mouth to protest, but found no words. The reality of his situation was unmistakable. Amina had done the unthinkable, and he could no longer treat her as just a cleaner. Now, if you'll excuse me, Amina concluded, her voice cool and commanding, I have a company to run. With that, she turned and walked out of the boardroom, leaving behind a group of men who had underestimated her every step of the way. As she stepped back into the hallway, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had done it. In the coming months, Sterling Enterprises underwent a remarkable transformation. Amina's leadership style breathed new life into the company culture. Employees at every level began to feel valued, heard, and respected. Those who had once been treated as invisible workers now held significant roles in shaping company policies and practices. Amina continued to rise in her position, her presence felt in every corner of the office. She had proven that the true strength of a company came not just from its profits or its title, but from its people. As the halls of Sterling Enterprises filled with laughter and collaboration, Amina knew that the tides had truly turned. Her journey was far from over, but Amina had taken the first step in a long fight for justice and equality within the corporate world. And she was determined to make sure it wouldn't be the last.